The Harry Potter series means so much to so many people, including myself. Harry Potter has been my escape for most of my life, and when you're that invested in a fictional story, it's only natural that it makes you cry from time to time. In this video, I'm going to go over 15 moments that made me shed a few tears while reading the 7 Harry Potter books. Obviously, these moments might not have made you cry, which is totally fine. I'm just sharing my own experience with the series that I love so much. I rank these moments by how much I cried for each. These could be sad cries, happy cries, heartwarming cries, you name it. If it made me shed a tear, it's on the list. If you like this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my socials, all of which are linked down below, and all of which contain similar content that I do here on this channel. Okay, let's see, what time is it? Oh yeah! It's time to thank our sponsor, Holzkern, who gifted me this amazing watch. This specific watch is the Naturalist Marble and Silver, which has a genuine marble dial, a case made from stainless steel and silver, and an amazing brown leather bracelet. I've had this watch for a week now, and I've worn it every single day, and you would not believe how many compliments I've gotten about it. I've realized the thing about Holzkern products is that they're so unique and so beautifully made that they stand out like no other product I've ever seen. I've never in my life gotten more compliments about something I'm wearing than I have with this watch this week. And Holzkern doesn't just make watches, they have over 1,000 designs for their products online, all just as incredible as this one. Their products include watches for both men and women, jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, rings, handbags, sunglasses, and a whole lot more. Beyond their amazing products though, the reason why I partnered with Holzkern, which means wood core in German by the way, is because of what the company stands for. Like me on this channel, they started off small with a small family business based in Austria, and since then they've now grown to 150 employees, which is just enough to make sure that they can deliver worldwide, but still small enough that they can be very down to earth and take the time and care needed for each customer. Their products are made from natural materials, and their grains allow for every product to be truly unique. Also, one thing that I really admire about them is that even though many of their products are made of wood, which leads to some amazing looking pieces by the way, all the wood they use is FSC certified, meaning there's no deforestation, which I respect immensely. Holzkern is also incredible to its customers. When they sent me this watch, they included this wooden Harry Potter postcard, knowing how much both me and my audience loves Harry Potter, which really goes to show how personal every product they send out is. Go on over to holzkern.com/movieflame, which I've linked down below to see their amazing products for yourself. And they even gave me a special discount code for all of you guys to use. So when you find the product or products you want, be sure to use code MovieFlame15. Have fun going through their incredible collection online and enjoy the discount code they helped me hook you guys up with. Now that I've said that, let's get the video started. At number 15, I'm putting Harry seeing Luna's room. This is just such a touching moment. Luna had gone most of her life without any friends, always being picked on and always being an outsider. However, that all changed when Dumbledore's army was formed and she finally had a group of people that liked her for who she really was. However, they didn't know how much they meant to her until they saw her room. She decorated her ceiling with 5 beautifully painted faces of Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Neville, all linked together with gold text that said friends 1,000 times over. It's a moment that really shows how much her relationship with the 5 of them truly meant to her, and it makes me shed a tear every time I read it. At number 14, I have the moment where Harry protected McGonagall. First of all, the moment where McGonagall states that Harry is in her house, said with a huge sense of pride, it always sets the scene up perfectly. Then, after Amicus spits in McGonagall's face, Harry rips his invisibility cloak off and uses the torture curse on him. Now this is noteworthy because Harry couldn't even use the torture curse on Bellatrix after she had killed Sirius because he had to really mean it for it to work. So the fact that it only worked when it came to protecting McGonagall is quite touching, and the reunion is even better. After Harry protected her, she tries to protect him, telling him to flee as fast as he can, and she worries about him even more when his scar starts to hurt. However, when Harry says that he needs to find the diadem, McGonagall straightens herself up and says, "We shall secure the school against he who must not be named while you search for this object." This makes me shed a tear every time I read this line, especially when you realize how much their dynamic has changed. They went from student and teacher to friends in that very moment, McGonagall having so much respect for the child she pretty much helped raise while he was at the castle. For number 13, I chose the moment where Harry brought Dumbledore to tears. Harry was telling Dumbledore about his interaction with Rufus Scrimgeour after the Minister had ambushed him at the Weasleys while celebrating Christmas. When Harry told Dumbledore how Scrimgeour had accused him of being Dumbledore's man through and through, Dumbledore responded saying that that was very rude of him to say. However, Harry's response took him aback as he said, "I told him I was." Dumbledore was so touched that he couldn't even find words, opening his mouth and then shutting it, instead letting tears come to his eyes. Once he gathered himself, he told Harry that he was very touched. I just can't help it. When Dumbledore cries, I cry too. It's inevitable. Especially when he cries over such a touching moment. Dumbledore cared for Harry so much, so to hear those words from him, I'm sure made his whole year. For number 12, I chose the moment where Neville steps forward. This moment is very different than the film version, which I'm sure most of you thought of when I said this. But the book version of this is even better, as it combines two epic movie moments into one. After Voldemort said that Harry had been killed while he was trying to save himself, Neville ran forward straight at Voldemort for telling this lie about his friend, but he was immediately disarmed and brought to his knees. Voldemort went on to say that Neville was a pureblood and that he should join his Death Eater ranks, but Neville replied with a line that sends chills down my spine and makes me shed a tear every single time I read it. "I'll join you when hell freezes over. Dumbledore's army." This made everyone cheer so loud it broke through Voldemort's silencing charm. Voldemort regains control, however, and after calling the Sorting Hat to him, he forces it on Neville's head, making it cover his eyes, just as it had done when he was originally sorted into Gryffindor 7 years ago, at a time when everyone questioned this decision, which no one was doing anymore. He proved he was a true Gryffindor as the Sword of Gryffindor presented itself to him. He took it off, grabbed the sword, and cut Nagini, the final Horcrux's head off. This epic moment restarted the battle, swinging the momentum to the heroes. Just seeing how far Neville has come makes me shed a tear every time I read this. Early on, everyone questioned why he was in Gryffindor, and all these years later, it turns out he's the truest Gryffindor of them all, as the Sorting Hat, the only one that saw this outcome 7 years ago when he was placed on Neville's head, gives him the sword of Godric Gryffindor himself, and Neville proves why the Sorting Hat made the choice to put him in the house defined by bravery. Speaking of Gryffindor, the moment I chose for number 11 is when the Gryffindor Quidditch team won the Quidditch Cup during the Prisoner of Azkaban. Let me set the scene for you guys. 3 Quidditch seasons with the exact same team. Book 1, they took the worst loss Gryffindor had seen in centuries because their seeker was in the hospital wing. Book 2, they were on a drive to win it all, but the season was cancelled.
We can't cancel Quidditch.
Silence would.
Book 3, it's Wood's last season, his last chance to win the Quidditch Cup. Their season started off poorly though, after losing their first game where Harry was a starting player. However, they somehow climb back into it, but they need to score 210 points more than their rival house Slytherin in the championship. This was what 3 books of Quidditch had led up to, so when Harry beat his arch enemy Draco Malfoy to the snitch to win it all, it was an amazing moment. What happens next is what brings me to tears though. Wood comes speeding toward Harry and hugs him, burying his head in Harry's shoulder as he cried uncontrollably, knowing he would end his Hogwarts Quidditch career with a championship. Then Fred and George join in and hug them, followed by Katie, Alicia, and Angelina, the team that had been through so much over the past 3 years, having a group hug as they realized what they had finally accomplished together. The 7 players were then hoisted onto the shoulders of the crowd of Gryffindors. Hagrid was cheering, McGonagall was crying even harder than Wood, and fighting their way to Harry was his best friends Ron and Hermione, both of them too excited to speak, so they just beam at their friends, so proud of him. Dumbledore then hands the Quidditch Cup to Wood, who proudly holds it in the air, and then he passes it to Harry, who was so happy he felt he could produce the world's best Patronus. What a moment. It's impossible for me to read this without crying happy tears. It's the Rudy moment in the Harry Potter series. In the 10th spot, I put when Molly Weasley hugged Harry. This took place after Harry had just been through the worst experience of his life, seeing Cedric die right in front of him, watching Voldemort return, having to fight the man who killed his mother and father, and speaking with his parents for the first time since they died when he was just a baby in the most heartbreaking way. He had been through hell that night, and when he was telling everyone what happened in the hospital wing, Mrs. Weasley tells him it was not his fault. Then, when a burning feeling came in his throat as he fought back tears, Mrs. Weasley bent down and put her arms around him. He had no memory of ever being hugged like this, as though by a mother. The full weight of everything he had seen that night seemed to fall in upon him as Mrs. Weasley held him to her. His mother's face, his father's voice, the sight of Cedric dead on the ground all started spinning in his head until he could hardly bear it, until he was screwing up his face against the howl of misery fighting to get out of him. This was the first time Harry could remember the embrace of a mother, and it made him break down knowing his real mother would never be able to hug him like this. Number 9. Harry reads Lily's letter. This was the most Harry and we as readers had ever gotten from Lily, which made this letter incredibly special. Seeing her write about being Harry's mother, being friends with Sirius, her worrying about her husband James, it made both us and Harry feel as though we finally saw Lily for who she truly was as a person. Then you get to the bit of her worrying about Wormtail, who she called Wormy, as she said that he seemed down the last time he stopped by. Both us and Harry of course know why he was like that. He knew it was the last time he would see the two of them before betraying them to Voldemort. Well, all of that built my emotions up. The thing that made me shed tears was Harry's reaction to this letter. He felt both joy and grief go through him, and as he stared at it, reading it over and over again, he realized small things, like that Lily wrote her G's the same way he did. As he searched the letter for all of the G's, each one felt like a friendly little wave glimpsed from behind a veil. The letter was proof that Lily Potter had really lived, that her warm hand had once moved across this parchment, tracing ink into these letters, these words about Harry, her one and only son. To Harry, it was like listening to a half-remembered voice, and as he read, tears filled in his eyes, and I was right there with him, tears filling in my eyes as well. At number 8, I'm putting when Harry faced Voldemort in the graveyard. This is one of those moments that's just so powerful, it brings me to tears. Harry was hidden behind a headstone, and he realized this was it. He knew one thing only, and it was beyond fear or reason. He was not going to die crouching here like a child playing hide and seek. He was not going to die kneeling at Voldemort's feet. He was going to die upright like his father, and he was going to die trying to defend himself, even if no defense was possible. Harry stood up, pointed his wand, and looked at Voldemort face to face. This was then the start of that epic duel in the graveyard. It brings tears to my eyes because this is what Harry's entire life had led up to, and he stood up like the brave Gryffindor he is, inspired by the memory of his father who had tried to hold the very man Harry was facing off the night he died protecting his wife and son. This is one of the most powerful moments in the entire series, and it's so powerful that it brings me to tears. At number 7, I'm putting the final lines of the series. Now this pick is a little bit more personal for me because this was the end of the series that had bonded me and my grandmother so much over the years. I've shared this in Q&As and also on my Instagram, but all of the books I have were given to me by my grandmother after she finished reading them, but she unfortunately passed away before she could finish the 7th book. And to this day, 14 years after she died, I still have the bookmark where she left off in the book. I never took it out. Then a few years after she died, I started reading the book out loud from where she left off, knowing that she was listening up in heaven, and it was my way of making sure she knew how the series she loved so much ended. When I read those final lines to her, the lines that finished the series off, I was absolutely bawling my eyes out. And now, this ending, these final lines, always remind me of that vulnerable moment that I shared with my late grandmother. Whew, man, got deep. But with that being said, looking at just the content in those final words, it's still enough to bring me to tears even without the memory of my grandmother. Seeing a grown-up Harry worrying about his son going off to Hogwarts was the perfect wrap-up. And as Ginny says that their son would be alright, Harry touches his lightning scar, reminding himself that he made a better, safer world for his son to live in, and he replies to his wife saying, "I know we will." Then, that final line. The scar had not pained Harry for 19 years. All was well. Number 6, Dobby's death. This was a death that I did not see coming the first time I read the 7th book. Just when you think they escaped, just when you think they're safe, Harry looks down and sees a knife in Dobby's stomach. It was shocking, and the thing that really makes me tear up is the way Harry reacts. He starts yelling desperately for help, not caring if the people there were wizards or muggles, friends or foes. All he cared about was that a dark stain was spreading across Dobby's front. Harry then starts begging the elf not to die. "Dobby, no, don't die, don't die." Then, as Dobby is in Harry's arms, he says his last words to Harry, which happen to be the exact same first words he ever said to him all those years ago.
Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
Then the burial and funeral that follows makes it hit even harder, as Harry digs Dobby's grave without magic, as Luna thanks Dobby for saving them. And to top it off, what Harry carves into his grave just makes the tears pour down. Here lies Dobby, a free elf. At number 5, I have Harry accepting his destiny. This one is just purely JK's writing that made me cry. There's no dialogue, there's nothing happening, it's just JK's words. Finally, the truth. Lying with his face pressed onto the dusty carpet of the office where he had once thought he was learning the secrets of victory, Harry understood at last that he was not supposed to survive. His job was to walk calmly into death's welcoming arms. Along the way, he was to dispose of Voldemort's remaining links to life, so that when at last he flung himself across Voldemort's path and did not raise a wand to defend himself, the end would be clear, and the job that ought to have been done in Godric's Hollow would be finished. Neither would live, neither could survive. The way it reworks that line from the prophecy sends chills down my spine, and that line about Godric's Hollow brings everything full circle in the most poetic way. This might just be the best paragraph written in all 7 of the books, and it always gets the tears flowing. Number 4, Sirius's death. Once again, it's Harry's reaction that makes this so heartbreaking. After Sirius fell through the veil, Harry trying to get to his godfather was bad enough, but Lupin having to hold him back made this even worse, especially because Lupin was just as heartbroken, but he put his feelings aside to ease Harry's. He tells Harry that Sirius is gone and that there's nothing they can do, but Harry is in extreme denial. He did not believe it. He would not believe it. Lupin did not understand. People hid behind that curtain. Sirius was hiding, simply lurking out of sight. Then, when Harry comes to the realization that Sirius really is gone, it's absolutely soul-crushing. But some part of him realized, even as he fought to break free from Lupin, that Sirius had never kept him waiting before. Sirius had risked everything, always to see Harry, to help him. If Sirius was not reappearing out of the archway when Harry was yelling for him as though his life depended on it, the only possible explanation was that he could not come back. That he really was. This little section never fails to make the tears start pouring out. Harry had lost so much, and after finally getting the closest thing he had ever had to a parent, he was gone just like that. At number 3, I'm putting always. When Snape realizes that Harry is supposed to die, he becomes furious.
So when the time comes, the boy must die?
Yes, he must die.
I thought all these years that we were protecting him for her, for Lily. His outrage at Dumbledore's plan is such a shift in what we as readers expected from him. You have kept him alive so that he can die at the right moment? Don't be shocked, Severus. How many men and women have you watched die? Lately, only those whom I could not save. You have used me. I have spied for you and lied for you, put myself in mortal danger for you. Everything was supposed to be to keep Lily Potter's son safe. Now you tell me you have been raising him like a pig for slaughter? But this is touching, Severus. Have you grown to care for the boy after all? For him? Then, as Snape reveals his doe Patronus, the same one as Lily's, we realize that we're looking at a different man than we thought for the past 7 books. As Dumbledore's eyes were full of tears, mine were too, and as he said,
Lily, after all this time.
Always.
This one line changes everything we thought we knew about Harry's potion professor. The man that Harry and we as readers all despised turns out to be a broken-hearted man doing all he could for the woman he had loved. It's such a powerful and plot-shifting piece of literature that could bring anyone to tears. Number 2. Neville visits his parents at St. Mungo's Hospital. When Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny run into Neville and his grandmother visiting his parents, it leads to one of the saddest moments in the whole series. First, his grandmother is very disappointed when she finds out that Neville had not told anyone about his parents' fate, and as Neville looks up at the ceiling, Harry could not remember ever feeling more sorry for someone before. His grandmother told him off for this. Well, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You should be proud, Neville, proud. They didn't give their health and their sanity so their only son would be ashamed of them, you know. Neville replied in a very small voice that he wasn't ashamed. His gran then tells Neville's friends what happened, saying that her son and his wife had been tortured into insanity by Voldemort's followers, which led to Hermione and Ginny clapping their hands over their mouths. Then the group gets interrupted by Alice, Neville's mother, coming over. She made her way to Neville and she gave him a gum wrapper. Neville looked up with a small smile, saying, "Thanks, Mom." Neville then turned around to look at his friends as if daring them to laugh, but they did not, Harry instead thinking he'd never found anything less funny in his life. Neville and his gran then began to leave, and as they did, she told Neville to throw the gum wrapper away, saying she must have given him enough to paper his entire bedroom. As they left, however, Neville did not listen, instead slipping the wrapper into his pocket to keep it. Getting those wrappers was the most of an interaction he would get from his mother, and it was the closest thing he'd ever come to connecting with her. Because of this, he cherished those gum wrappers more than anything else, which makes the tears stream down my face every time I read this. And the number one moment that makes me cry is, of course, Fred's death. Setting the scene up, Percy, who had been at odds with his family for years at this point, had finally reconciled with them. Fred was then back with his older brother, fighting side by side, and when Percy made a joke, Fred was ecstatic. "You're joking, Perce! You are actually joking, Perce! I don't think I've heard you joke since you were..." The most shocking thing to happen in the series then took place here, as the wall exploding knocked them all back. Harry heard a terrible cry that pulled at his insides, that expressed agony of a kind neither flame nor curse could cause, and he stood up swaying, more frightened than he had been that day, more frightened perhaps than he had been in his life. Percy's reaction is what really gets you though. "No, no, no! No, Fred, no!" Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them, and Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face. As the battle continued, Percy refused to move, just lying across Fred's dead body, shielding it from further harm. Harry tried to pull him off, but he refused. Finally, he agreed to get up though when they said they would move Fred's body to a safe place. Then it was Ron's reaction that gets you. After watching Percy chase after Fred's killer, shouting, "Rookwood!" Ron wanted to help too, but Hermione physically restrained him. Ron's grief quickly turned to anger. "I want to help! I want to kill Death Eaters!" His face was contorted, smeared with dust and smoke, and he was shaking with rage and grief. Only when Hermione reminded him that the only way to end this was to help Harry kill the snake did he snap out of it. This whole sequence is probably the most emotional moment in the entire series, and it always has me crying from beginning to end. It is the moment that made me cry more than any other moment in the Harry Potter series. Whew, wow. This was an emotional video to film. My emotions were all over the place while filming this. I'd love to know what you guys thought of my picks, and I'd love to know what you guys think are the most emotional moments in the series for you. I want to again thank our sponsor today, Holzkern. Head on over to holzkern.com/movieflame to check out all of their amazing products, and when you check out, make sure you use code MovieFlame15. That's all I have for you guys this week though, so I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes Movie Flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great Movie Flame videos on the way.